But oh, you beauty! What a head, son! What a head!
Welcome back to Onto the Ball. We've had a little sabbatical. Can you call it a sabbatical, Travis?
Some gardening leave or something, man.
Don't call it a comeback.
Nah, we never went, mate. We never went.
Oh, we've done one video in about 6 weeks.
I know.
I've moved house. I've been to Spain. I've been to Las Vegas. You've got a new job. Life's just been hectic, hasn't it?
Hectic, mate. Yeah, very hectic. Got a holiday.
And on top of that, Man United are absolutely skint, and you're going crazy on Twitter. So I thought now's as good as a time as any to get back on
the iron's hot.
So yeah, listen, welcome back to Onto the Ball. Me and Travis are going to be back now. As those eagle-eyed viewers that have tuned in before will notice, I've got a new background because I've moved house. This is still my son's bedroom. Travis hasn't moved house. He's got the same background, but you're going to have the same analysis, the same football knowledge, the same passion for the channel as we've always had. So let's get straight into it. Travis, this is going to be a 20-minute, half an hour video on Manchester United's season 22-23. Erik Ten Hag, what he's done well, what he's not done so well, your assessment of the season, and then we're going to head straight into the transfer window because I've got some thoughts about the transfer window that I'm not sure you're going to agree with me, but this sale by the Glazers to Sir Jim Ratcliffe or Ineos, Qatar bid, it's just all a mess now. I am absolutely certain that the purse strings are firmly closed and they can't spend pretty much anything while there's a sale going through. If you think of any business, you can't all of a sudden, when the sale's going through, just chuck in a £200 million spend or debt, whatever way you want to say it. So I think I'm right. You might have some thoughts yourself, but first of all, let's just head to the good stuff. Erik Ten Hag, he's had 12 months in the role. He bagged a trophy. It could have been 2 trophies. Cynical Man United fans could think it could have been 3 trophies, 2-0 up at Sevilla.
Yeah.
You think that was you through to was that the semi-final? It was, wasn't it?
Yeah, it would have been the semi-final, yeah, if we beat Sevilla. But yeah, we come and stuck
so you
away.
would have been in the semis, yeah.
Yeah,
So yeah, listen, obviously I'm quite cynical of Erik Ten Hag. I don't think he's much better than Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. Prove me wrong, or agree with me.
Yeah. I mean, if you rewind to sort of like the latter parts of the season from February onwards, I think it's interesting actually because we had a discussion when OB was on the channel and he spoke about the EFL Cup can sort of derail your season when you win it, and in some cases he was exactly right in that sense. I think since the EFL Cup our form was very, very indifferent. We had limited resources in terms of our attacking options, but I think the way we finished the season in terms of our overall targets from the start of the season, I think you have to say that you'd be happy with how we finished with the top 3 finish, with Liverpool putting on pressure towards the last 7-6 games of the season for that final Champions League spot. I think we managed.
You say putting on pressure with tongue in cheek.
No, I mean, you know,
you were very vocal on Twitter.
There
was no pressure.
It's a touchy subject. I was always confident that if we didn't get top 4, it would have been catastrophic from the position that we were in. 10 points clear with like 6 games to go. We should not have been failing to get top 4 from that stage. With the fixtures that we had left, we had a few teams that were sort of on the beach, like Bournemouth, Fulham, teams that didn't really have much to play for. And it would have been extremely disappointing for us to miss out. But in terms of our overall objectives, I think top 4 was definitely an objective for us at the start of the season. I don't think many pundits and people had us to get that. Although we had spent 200 million, I think it's sort of always been a minimum requirement for Man United. I mean, since Fergie retired, we've been very indifferent getting the top 4. I think we've got it about 50% of the time that we've that since he's retired, which isn't good enough for a club of our stature, and especially with the amount of money that we spend. But I think Ten Hag, with the fact that he had the Ronaldo saga to deal with, Weghorst came in and didn't score a league goal. Then you had the injuries and suspensions to sort of Casemiro, the back end of the season with Martinez sort of being injured and Varane, both our first choice centre halves, out in some pivotal games, including sort of the FA Cup final, which I'm sure we'll come on to. I think he managed well with what he had. But now, like you said, I think we've got the top four. You would have thought we need to go on and kick on in the transfer market, and that's not sort of happening at the moment. So I'm happy with the way that he navigated us through the season. There were some sticky points. Our away form, especially against the bigger teams, does need to improve next year. I don't think we won one game against anybody in the top 8, which again isn't good enough.
Wasn't it?
Yeah, really poor. And not just the results, which were really bad, especially like you said, away at Anfield and the Etihad especially, but the performances were shocking as well in those games as well. Poor. Tactically, you got some things wrong in those games. I can remember when we played Newcastle away, the score was only 2-0, but we got battered all game. He played like Weghorst up front in the 10 and McTominay in the 10, and it was just a load of carnage. And at points, it does look like he struggled with some aspects of the game, but I'm confident tactically he's got the tools to sort of take us forward, but it's all going to depend on this transfer market, and it's pivotal.
I used to always joke that Ole Solskjaer was on a YTS thing, didn't I? Alex Ferguson was his mentor. There was times last season when Ten Hag looked like he was on a YTS.
Yeah.
And he looked almost naive, like you said, especially in the away games.
Yeah. It's a massive issue. And I think it goes back to as well, like the physicality of our team. And I know I've banged on about this in quite a few streams, but it's not just about height. We lack aggression. We need more characters in there. I mean, Martinez is an example of the type of character that we need. That was very evident in the FA Cup final. For us, that I think we struggled massively with the physical element of City. We just couldn't live with them, and that's the same with a lot of the away games that we've played this year. The intensity of the sort of Liverpools, the Cities, Brighton away, and stuff like that. We really struggled in those games, so that's going to be a point of topic for Ten Hag, and people are going to be looking at that very intensely going into the new season. But on the flip side, the home form was great. I think we lost one game at home all season, which was Brighton on the first day of the season. So we beat all the big teams at home, including Manchester City, Liverpool, Chelsea, which Arsenal, all of them. Yeah, so we did well. Brentford. So again, brilliant home form. But the squad needs tidying up. He knew the size of the job before he came in, and I think this season was just about sort of getting over the line in terms of the Champions League places. We'd managed to do that. We nicked a cup as well. The treble was a little bit of a pipe dream. I was optimistic we could have got one over
the quadruple.
Yeah, the quad. I was quite optimistic we could maybe bag 2 of those trophies, but I think once we went out the Europa League, the FA Cup was always going to be a long shot for us.
Talk to me about the squad then. Let's get straight into the nitty gritty. Obviously, Casemiro's 31 now. Eriksen can't be far behind him. He must be 31. De Gea's on his way out. Varane, if he's not 30, he will be soon.
Yeah.
You had Weghorst, Peghorst, as you call him, like an anchor up front. Where do you think your squad is in terms of development? Because I always bantered you that you need at least 10 players to challenge for the title.
You were right.
Casemiro, yes.
Yeah, you were right, definitely.
We're not even 10 minutes into the poddy, and you're agreeing with me. Love it.
I have to. No, I agree. I do. Like, the squad is so imbalanced. I mean, I look at the fullback areas, and I think the right back area could definitely be improved, but that's not a priority for us. I think right down the spine, and I'm not going to include Casemiro in that personally because I think he's been great, but we certainly need somebody who can cover him if in his absence. I'm not saying we need a direct replacement for him now, but for me, I think Caicedo, I don't know whether we've got the money for him or what, but he is a no-brainer for me because
massive.
we need a right back and we need an 8 with power, and we need someone who can cover Casemiro. He can do all 3 of those roles.
He can do
So
everything. He can
yeah,
do everything.
exactly. So I don't get why we're spending 65 or whatever it's going to be, 60 million on Mason Mount when Caicedo is going to cost 80. That to me,
I keep saying in the group chat, I don't know why it's gone so quiet on him, but it's like it's eerily quiet, like it's a done deal somewhere else. That's all I can imagine. It's a done deal somehow. Why is there no speculation, no talk when Caicedo was linked with pretty much every top 6 club in the January transfer window? And now you look at the transfer news every single day on Twitter, on Sky Sports, he doesn't get mentioned. And he is so top draw. I would literally, if we missed out on Bellingham, I said it in the group chat, get all your eggs into the Caicedo basket. He's like N'Golo Kante Mark II.
He's the one for me as well. Yeah, he is the one.
And people that talk about N'Golo Kante just as a CDM, he had more than that to his game. And so's Caicedo. Like you say, his versatility. I would be absolutely fuming if he went to Man United.
Yeah, I think he's going to go to Chelsea, and I think it is more or less a done deal. I think they're just getting some players off the books. Obviously, like Kovacic is gone and a few others. Mount's going to go. I think once those deals are sanctioned, then I think they'll kick on with Caicedo. But the fact that we're buying Mount tells me that we're not going to get Caicedo, because I don't think we've got the money to sort of spend on Mount and Caicedo with the other positions that we need. Goalkeeper is 100% nailed on. I mean, if I just touch on the FA Cup final, he more or less cost us that game. Like, I don't want to pin it on one player, but the goals they scored, City were dominant in the game. But the goals that we conceded were just poor. Like, especially the second goal, the volley from Gundogan, just, you'd expect a top keeper to just turn that round the post. It just didn't move his feet. And it's just...
He gave up, didn't he?
Yeah, I know.
Like, in the first, 20 seconds of a cup final?
Yeah.
There's nothing worse than a keeper just kind of giving up, dropping his knee and watching it. You think, just dive, and at least if you miss it, that was poor.
Yeah.
But what the question I want to ask you is, obviously you've been quite vocal about De Gea, and it's obvious Man United need a top striker. Harry Kane's been muted. Osimhen, Højlund, the lad from Atalanta.
Yeah.
Where would you rank the keeper in terms of priority to upgrade? For me, I would have him a bit like your right back. De Gea is not the worst, and he's not your biggest problem. So I'd have it quite far down, but I've got a feeling you'd have it quite high up.
Yeah, no pun intended, but he's number 1 priority.
Really? Over a striker?
Yeah.
So you're talking about having Ration as striker, and then the winger options, Sancho, Garnacho.
Yeah, because
Anthony.
I think... Yeah, the reason I say that is because if we have a keeper that's able to play out, we can sustain attacks more. Like, the FA Cup final was just the biggest example I can give. Every time De Gea got it, he boomed it, and we lost the second ball. So we just were under pressure all game. So, do you know what I mean? You're going to decrease the amount of attacks that you face in a game by at least a third if you've got a keeper that can just pass it 6 yards to a player in space. So for me, he and the striker are of equal priority, I think. I think we'll always have goals in the side. We didn't score that many goals, but again, that all roots back to the fact that against the better teams, we just give possession up so easily. And our defensive record was so good because as a unit, tactically, we're set up so much better under this manager. So for me, I think a keeper just transforms the amount that we're able to sustain attacks massively. So for me, it's very high on the priority list. Number 1, or at least in the top 2 for me with a striker.
Jordan Pickford.
No.
I've seen the links on Twitter, and I'm like, please buy Jordan Pickford.
There's no sugarcoating it. It's an absolute no for me. He's got errors in him. Do you know what I mean? Yes, his kicking's a bit better than De Gea's, but come on, he's got big errors in him.
Jordan, do you think it's more because I've seen the price mooted at £45 million? And again, I thought, obviously we'll get on to it. I've got this theory that Man United are skint for the first time in our lifetime. Yeah, I think they've got no money. Anything that they're going to be able to spend is what they've generated from incomings. So when I keep seeing these cheap options, what have we seen? Mason Mount, 40 million, rejected. Jordan Pickford linked, 45 million. That's cheap, you know, for a top quality keeper, you're talking 70, 80 million.
Yeah.
Today, I've even seen you linked with Declan Rice, which is 40 million plus Harry Maguire and Alanga.
I've never known two.
I mean, what does that make the package? About 45 million?
I've never known two players to decrease an original transfer value, mate. It's crazy. It's more without them, isn't it?
I mean, is that just Twitter just being everything that's bad about Twitter? Like, you go on and read these kind of rumors, and like Declan Rice is going to be licking his lips for that, and like West Ham are going to take Harry Maguire for Declan Rice. I mean, they're going to want bare peas, aren't they? And look
exactly.
for a couple of 40 million players.
They've already rejected 90 million cash, so they're not going to accept that, are they? Like, that total package is genuinely about 60 million. Really, like, Maguire's not worth 30 million. He might think he is, but he's not. Do you know what I mean? So Alanga's probably worth about 5 to 10 million, no more than that. I know he's a Swedish international and stuff, but I don't think Sweden have got anyone pulling up any trees. So he's just in there by name. Do you know what I mean? I'm not. Yeah. That's no banter. So yeah, I think. Look, I think players like Declan Rice, like, for example, Rice, he'd already got his heart set on one of the top two. He's obviously going to know behind the scenes if City are in for him. That's become quite public over the last sort of 24 hours that City are in for him. And when you think about the fact that City have already got rid of Ilkay Gundogan, Kevin De Bruyne is 31, then you're looking at like Phillips, who don't play, who's probably going to leave. He slots straight in. Do you know what I mean? Rodri, Rice, Kevin De Bruyne, or Foden. It's scary. And then you got Kovacic as well. It's an embarrassment of riches. And to me, Rice just sets them up for the future if they can get that deal over the line. But it's the same with Arsenal. Obviously, Arsenal, with the fact that Partey's been linked with a move away as well, I think they both sort of need him. Like, they both will prioritize Declan Rice. It's down to him, and he should be able to call the shots because he's had a fantastic season. I think we're just probably being used as a bit of a pawn in the media to try and drive the price up. That's what I think we're being used for. We've got absolutely no chance of getting Declan Rice. We can't afford what the asking price is. I don't think West Ham can afford to hold on to him. And we're not in a position either where things are good enough where Rice says, do you know what, I'm going to wait a year because I want to go United. If it was City, he'd probably do that, but not with the state that United are in, with the ownership and the fact that we're still building and things like that. I mean, it could all change. Like, next season, with the Qataris in and we start splashing some good cash and things like that, for example, we might look like a bit of an attractive proposition. But I have to be realistic as a Manchester United fan and say that top echelon of players, that pool of players, we're not attractive to those players at the moment. The Declan Rices and the Caicedos, I hate to say it, we should be in for Caicedo, throwing the absolute bank at him, but it looks like you said, we're not in a position to do that, and I don't think the top players want to come to United at the moment. So we're getting second-rate players. I know people are trying to pass it off as Ten Hag, saying, oh, he's fitting players into a system and stuff, but they're not good enough. Like, I saw a tweet the other day, and it's like, how would you rate this window? It was Mason Mount, Adrian Rabiot on a free from Juventus, Desai from Monaco, Onana, the keeper, and then that Højlund from Atalanta. And it's good for what we've got, but it's not like top draw. It's not closing the gap on City or anyone in big hitters in Europe, put it that way.
What do you know about this Atalanta Højlund? Obviously, I went on to Flashscore and check him out. He scored 13 career goals. And I know you might say, come on, Scott, he's only 20, give him time. But when you look at being linked with Manchester United, if they were to sign him, that's a punt, surely.
Yeah, I think.
What kind of price is being mooted?
Well, at first it was 40 and now it's gone up to 80 million euro. So again, people know we're in a position where we desperately need players, and the price is going to go up by 15 million every single time we approach a player. And we can't seem to get any value in the market. But underneath the Glazers, the setup's poor. We brought in like sort of a new head of recruitment who's meant to be negotiating the transfers and stuff. I don't know anything about him. Again, like you said, are we able to do deals? We must be able to do some business. I mean, we're pushing Mason Mount through. How's that getting sanctioned?
I think you're going to have your normal turnover kind of profit. It's every club in that top 6, they'll turn over a normal profit of around 40 million, I'd say 30 to 40 million.
Yeah.
All these teams like Arsenal, Man City, they're all state backed or owner backed. Like Stan Kroenke's threw in £500 million.
Yeah.
Man United go about it a different way. They just put more and more on the debt pile. So the debt piles grew from 500 million to 600, to 700, 800, 900. It's nearly £1 billion now.
Yeah.
So obviously I know towards the end of the season, you were like, yeah, we'll spend again another 200 million. It's just what United do. And it is what they do, but it just feels different this time, doesn't it? And I think it is because of this sale. It's almost like, you know, when you're kind of selling a business, your assets are a bit frozen. So you can't make any wholesale changes because it's, you know, when the sale, you've made a proposal for this equity or this package. You can't then change the package against the buyer's will. Like the buyer should be having a say on what you're changing, be it a building or whatever. You're selling your house. You can't sell a house and just it's going through, you knock down the extension and take the bricks to your new house. That's kind of what it's like.
Yeah.
So to me, that we keep getting 40 million floated on Twitter. It's like I think the club, the books have generated a profit of around 40 million, so they're free to spend that. So that's why you're seeing 40 million plus Harry Maguire. They can sell assets. So if they sell Maguire and Alanga and McTominay, let's say they sell all of them for 80 million, you could then spend that 80 million because it's within the package.
Sure.
You can't spend over that. That's my reason. I'm not trying to come across like
no.
that Liverpool guy, but
it makes perfect sense, mate. And do you know when you think about it? I mean, there's pros and cons to it because the pros are it means the club's being sold. If that's the case, it means the club is being sold. So I'd be willing to take a hit on this season if it meant we got Qatari ownership and everything was like brilliant next year or the year after over the next couple of years. I think the fans would be willing to take that hit and just say, do you know what? We write this transfer window off. We might get Mount and one other with including player sales or a couple of others or whatever. And we say, right, we kick on after this and the Glazers are gone. Do you know what I mean? That's the only thing. But if the Glazers then pick Sir Jim Ratcliffe and become minority shareholders, and then Ineos are sort of borrowing money to like go again, it's just going to be mess on top of mess. So
more of the same,
yeah, this is it. So it's going to be it really is crunch time for Manchester United as a football club as to how we move forward from here. But I think
the thing is the buying clubs are not as silly as they used to be. Like they've probably never been silly, but the buying clubs will be happy to wait for a deadline. Let's say Harry Maguire for 20 million. They'll wait. And Liverpool are in the same boat. It's like I'm preaching to you like what's going to happen Man United. Liverpool are the same. We've probably spent our 40 million net on Alexis McAllister. Now we're going to be banking on some outs, whoever that may be. Maybe the keeper Kelleher, Nat Phillips, people like that. Maybe Joe Gomez, time might be up. Joel Matip might go for a token amount, but it's the same with Man United. It might bring back, remember the glory days of Jim White in the transfer deadline day? It used to be buzzing, didn't it, with his yellow tie? If you notice the last couple of years, you don't really get it anymore.
No.
I remember waiting up one night and they were like, oh, Michy Batshuayi might be going on loan to Dortmund. Stay up with us to find out what happens. And I remember thinking, I ain't staying up. I'm going to bed. That's not news. That's boring. But I can honestly see, because of the state that our clubs are in, I can see the last day or two, some sales going through. And then, I mean, look at us last summer signing that Arthur Melo on loan on deadline day. It was an absolute shambles.
Yeah.
And that just shows where Liverpool are as a club under these owners, FSG. And I've got a feeling, like we've alluded to, that Man United are going to be in exactly the same boat this season for the first time in my lifetime ever.
I think it's interesting you say that as well, because I'm in a group chat on Twitter. It's a brilliant group chat, to be fair. It's full of a
Add me.
fans. I will do. They're good. They're really good people. There's some really good people who eventually I want to get on this channel as well. There's some really good guys in there, all of them really. We have our debates and our tiffs and stuff, but that's normal. It's just like we don't fall out seriously. We just have quite strong opinions about stuff. And we're talking about the Glazers and how like everything, the book sort of stops with them in terms of like sanctioning deals and stuff. My argument is I do worry a little bit with sort of not Ten Hag's talent ID, but I think he needs support with like the players he's identifying to kick us on. Because the reason I say that is because in this group chat they were saying, oh well, he wants Kane, he wants Costa, naming all these big household names. I'm like, any manager can go to any top club and say you want those players. They're costing 100 million each. Do you know what I mean? You're not going to get all of them. That getting all of those signings isn't a sign of being backed by an ownership because you're not going to get them all. So if you can't afford to get all of your primary targets, then what happens? That's my question. So it's not just, I mean, take for example this Højlund or whatever. The Glazers have probably never even heard of him. Do you know what I mean? The Glazer brothers, they wouldn't have heard of this person. Who are they to turn around and say, do you know what? This player's not worth that amount of money. That they haven't got a clue. So for me, it's what's underneath that. So John Murta, Richard Arnold, what are their roles in sort of the transfers and the targets? Who's identifying the players? What are our scouts doing? I think this is, I'm not saying they're more of an issue than the Glazers, but I think they're just as culpable in terms of the targets that we're going after. Because Man City, they're able to sign Julian Alvarez for 25 million. Do you know what I mean? So their scouts are doing something right. Their technical director and their director of football is able to identify players that fit into a system. Why are we not able to do that, regardless of whether the owners are shambles or not? I'm still worried about the talent ID and the players that we're identifying. I mean, Mason Mount, to me, he used to play, he was on loan at Vitesse Arnhem in Holland. Ten Hag wanted him then when he was at Ajax. So that, again, is just a sort of an easy win for him. Andre Onana, ex-Ajax keeper at Inter Milan. That's another one that he knows. And then you've got the rest of the targets who are just sort of like young household names or coming through. So, yeah, again, that's a little bit of a concern for me as well about the structure beneath the Glazers just as much as them.
So there's no point in asking you what your dream window would be, really, because it's all up in the air, isn't it? I think it's pretty obvious that Man United are not going to spend 200 million like last summer. Is it worth asking you? Although, when you think about it, United were late spenders last summer, weren't they?
Yeah.
It looked like something was going on, or Ten Hag wasn't being back, and then you had a late flurry, bringing in Casemiro, Anthony. Was Malacia a late as well?
Malacia was early-ish with Eriksen, and then we signed Casemiro and Anthony quite late, and I think we got one other over the line. I can't remember off the top of my head now. But yeah, like you said, it's all going to depend. I mean, there's still plenty of time. It's just opened, and I'm trying not to jump the gun. But again, the players that we've been linked with do worry me. It's going to be interesting to see how we set up tactically as well, because people are saying we're going to move from 2 number 6s and a 10 to a 6 and 2 8s, and you're going to have Bruno
today.
Yeah, you're going to have Bruno and Mount like pressing high, winning the ball back, and all
Casemiro getting red cards.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, but my issue's always been that physical side of things. Like Caicedo next to Casemiro just looks a lot more intimidating to opposition, that you can't mess them about. And then the fact that you've got that technical element to him as well. To me, that makes more sense than Mason Mount. Yes, Mason Mount's tidy on the ball. He's good on the ball. He's creative. He'll create chances. He'll score goals as well. But the other side of the game, I know people are saying, oh, his pressing stats. But for me, being physical and pressing stats are two different things. So yeah, I'm a little bit worried. But again, another one, sorry, just to mention, Kim Min-jae as well, centre half at Napoli, has just won their player of the season.
Quiet as well, isn't it? He's linked with Bayern now.
Bayern now, yeah, and he's got a release clause that is triggered on the 1st of July. So it's going to be one of them where we might come in late again and trigger it, but have we got the money to do that? He's agreed a contract with Bayern already. They're saying they're willing to pay his release clause, so everything's set up for them to just do that deal. And I'm disappointed again. We need a centre back.
The thing is, Bayern don't need a centre back, do they? They got Delay up and Meccano.
Yeah.
Sule.
They've got a few. Yeah, they've got a few options.
But yeah, that's not for us to discuss.
Yeah.
So, Man United, obviously, let's have a bit of a realistic window then. I know you're not a fan of Mason Mount. I've been reading your tweets.
He's coming
Harry Kane, let's be honest, he's too expensive for anyone, and no one knows what's going to happen there. He's going to stay in the Premier League.
Apparently,
he's going to stay in Spurs for me.
Yeah, I think
Osimhen's going to be too expensive. So you're talking what, Mason Mount and potentially a keeper? I've seen a few tweets saying that De Gea's leaving. What is the situation with that?
I think we'll get De Gea's
on a free. He's out of contract.
Yeah, he wasn't on our retain list, so we've offered him reduced terms and not guaranteed number one, and he's not signing it. So he was on 350 a week. We tried to slash it by a quarter at least. He said no, and Ten Hag doesn't want him to be number one. But the club are passing it off like they're still negotiating it. They ain't negotiating anything. Do you know what I mean? That's done. Do you know what I mean? Like, why?
He leaves on the 30th of June then?
Yeah. So he leaves. And he's been linked with Saudi and a couple of other clubs. But nothing. His wish apparently is to go back to Spain, but nobody in Spain wants him. I feel really sorry for him in a way. I know I've hammered him, but like, no one in his own country wants him in his own league. So it looks like it's Saudi or nothing. Like, he wants to stay at United now. Like, and I don't blame him because he probably thinks,
what, on a quarter less?
Well, no, not necessarily on the reduced terms, but
is Ten Hag withdrew that offer now?
I think he wants first team football. I don't think he wants to sit on the bench. That's the big sticking point. From Manchester United's perspective, it makes no sense to keep him as a backup keeper. If he's not good enough to be a number one, he's not good enough to be...
But the thing is, you can't even try to negotiate that deal until you've signed a new keeper, surely. Because surely De Gea is confident in his own abilities, and he's like, I'm better than anyone you'll bring in, so I don't care if you're calling it not guaranteed number one. Or do you think De Gea knows he's done? His confidence is rock bottom. You could see in the FA Cup final, he didn't want the ball at all, did he? It was like hot potato every time he got it. His confidence
the difference is Ten Hag doesn't want him. Ten Hag doesn't feel he can move forward with him in the sticks. So as long as that's the case, if the manager doesn't want you, the manager doesn't want you. It's as simple as that. Like, you're surplus. Do you know what I mean? And as harsh as it sounds, come the 30th of June, United, he didn't get the send-off he deserved, but they can wash their hands with him. And it's just where he's going to end up playing his football. Like, will another Premier League club take him? I don't think he'd play for another Premier League club. He still loves the club. I don't think he'd go to the Premier League. I think he'd go abroad. Yeah, so for me, keeper 100%, Mason Mount, a striker, this Højlund, I think we will get. Them three are going to be the big names, really. Mount, Højlund, and a keeper, so it looks like Onana or Costa from Porto, and then the rest will just be scraps if there is any. I think maybe one more, maybe like a... I don't think we'll get... See, I think we might get another central midfielder. Fred will leave, and I think Maguire might end up staying. That's my feeling. That's my genuine feeling. I don't want it to happen, but I just think...
Not to mention that you've just spent 200 million in one sentence. Onana, Mount, and that Højlund. They're going to be like 60 each. That's 180, and Man United just haven't got it. Let's put a pin in it, yeah? That's what this podcast is all about. We'll make little predictions, comments, opinions, and then we'll visit in 2 weeks, see what happened. Yeah. We kind of skipped over it at the start. How would you rate Ten Hag's first season? Personally, I think he's done all right. Top four, bagged the trophy, made some smart signings. Obviously, he's not some very smart signings. You know, I've been critical of Casemiro only because of his age. Yeah, I said this right from the get-go, and I know you think I was bantering you, which I was in a way, obviously. Love the bants, but Casemiro is the wrong age at the wrong time. By the time Ten Hag gets it right, Casemiro is likely going to be 34, 35.
Yeah, I would give him a 7.5 out of 10, to be honest. there's room for improvement. I think he did. His home form was brilliant. You can see the way he wants to play. He hasn't got the players to play that way. His man management of certain players has been great. Again, he needs to improve with certain other in other aspects like the away form. I think how he manages some players, he needs to improve. The captaincy is an issue. Maguire, whether he stays or not, can't be the captain. He doesn't lead the team at all. Garnacho,
Surely that's put to bed now. This captain nonsense.
That needs sorting massively, mate. Garnacho was a star out of the season. He's come out of it really well. Glad he signed the new contract. I've got big hopes for him as a prospect. I think he'll be really, really, really good. We've got Amad Diallo, who did well in Sunderland on the Championship. He's going to come back in pre-season. So we've got a few good youngsters coming back in as well who might get some minutes as well. So that pre-season is going to be big for us. So yeah, this is crunch time. You've got the ownership, the squad's still all over the place, a solid 7.5, and next season is either going to be one of two ways, no in between. It's going to be brilliant or it's going to be an absolute catastrophe. And I'll end on that.
I hope it's the latter. But yeah, just one thing to end on for me. I've noticed a change in your demeanor, definitely on Twitter, after a good 6 months of telling me that I've got to stop obsessing about Klopp needing 200 million and it's not all about the money. You got to rely and find your nuggets left, right, and centre, like Andy Robertson, and now the shoe's on the other foot. It's you.
Well, can I just
probably skint.
Can I just say something in relation to that? You're right, but you've always had a good sporting director in Michael Edwards, who was able to identify the players that helped Klopp get him to the next level and get the club to the next level, like the Manes and the Salah. You might not be able to get those players for that price now. This was years ago. Yeah, you probably won't. But at that time, he was able, apart from the Van Dijk and the Alisson, when he was getting to finals and stuff with Lovren and Klavan, and he said, do you know what? We're not going to win it without the top draw. That's why you did it, or she would have carried on doing it the way that you did. But like, you had that infrastructure there in order to get those types of players for those fees to fit into a system. We haven't got that infrastructure underneath the Glazers at all. We've just got investment bankers and a load of commercially driven people that just don't know the way around football, and it's bad news for us, and we're feeling it now. So that's where the change in my demeanor has come. I'm angry.
Is that a disclaimer you've just put? Is that you distancing yourself from your own comments? I love the way you skillfully just backtracked out of that. You're like this.
Oh, dear.
Listen, there's going to be loads to talk about this summer because Liverpool are skint, Man United are skint. I'd love to end that with, but we're going to win the league. We're not going to win the league. No one's going to win the league ever again because of Man City.
I know.
And their state backing. There's something fishy going on at Chelsea as well. I seen a tweet the other day that they're going to be offloading loads of players by the end of June because their financial year is the 30th of June. And I just think it reeks. Something reeks. Even Man City buying Kovacic. It's like they're
that Saudi club who's been buying the players is connected to Todd Bowley in some way, isn't it?
It's so corrupt. There's something wrong, and football as we know it is never going to be the same ever again. But on we must go, hoping for the best, supporting our clubs, talking about our teams, and that's it. That's all we can do until we're state-owned ourselves, which might happen one day. Probably sooner for Manchester United than Liverpool, but c'est la vie. Right, Travis, 40 minutes nearly. It's been a pleasure. Guys, if you made it this far, don't forget to like and subscribe. It helps us out a lot. We're back, and I mean it this time. I know we said it in our video about 3 weeks ago, but I mean it this time. We're back. Constant content, consistent content. We're going to head through the summer. Transfer news, links, signings. We'll do a poddy whenever there's a big signing. If we do any big signings.
Loads of stuff.
Yeah, a lot. Right. See you in the next one. Cheers, Travis.
Cheers, brother.
Cheers, guys.
Header. But Gerrard! Oh, you beauty! What a